Hey guys, we're in Demonstration Forest, British Columbia, near Vancouver. Just a beautiful spot. Lots of walking, some waterfalls, and of course, forests going on. We're looking at the DŌST Drop, and this is the CVT. It's like a new version of the bike. I covered their original model a couple of years ago. It's pretty unique because these bikes can have a double battery for like double the range, basically. They also have a throttle, and they can be multiple classes. So like class 1 is up to 20 miles per hour, no throttle. Class 2 is 20 miles per hour with a throttle. And class 3 is 28 miles per hour, 45 kilometers per hour. And you can set all of that through to the display. So I thought that was really neat. The founder of this company has been in the bike industry for like 10 years. He's worked at all these other companies before and then wanted to do something of his own and just kind of like fulfill a vision that it just really hadn't been met by some of these other companies. So they only make a couple bikes, right? And I think they focus on them. They do a great job at it. Really heavy duty rear rack, 100 pounds on that thing. That's incredible. And then the bike itself is rated for 285 pounds, whereas most of the electric bikes I see, they're like 250. Some are 300, but this bike is just really capable, especially for a step through the design where you can approach the bike, you can stand over it and stabilize it much more easily. And that's especially important if you mount the optional front rack. And you can see it would bolt right here onto the steer tube, so it's not gonna slosh around as you steer the bike. You would have to reposition that headlight below the rack, and then it wouldn't point where you're steering. It's one of the trade-offs. But in terms of durability, for strength, just for raw power on this bike, I mean, they've kind of taken it to the max, and the rack is one example of that. The motor is another. So we're looking at the Bafang BBS02, but it's sort of modified. It's hidden. It's right there at the center of the bike. You can see some of the power cables going to it. This thing is rated at 750 watt nominal, 1000 watt peak, 120 Newton meters. That's really high. That's most electric bikes are like 60 or 80 Newton meters or something like this. So this is almost like overkill. And it brings up the question, like, can the drivetrain handle it? Can the frame handle it? So seeing things like the overbuilt front rack design or these additional gussets or flared tubing, you know, it inspires a lot of confidence, and that higher weight rating that they advertise. But we've also got a drivetrain that can handle it back here. So this is the New Vinci optimized Enviolo. It's like the N380, but it's cargo bike rated for up to 120 Newton meters. Convenient, right? So it perfectly matches the motor, and we're using a belt drive in this case. That's the thing that's really unique about this. To have a CVP, continuously variable planetary transmission, or continuously variable transmission, kind of what they're going with, to have that, it means you don't have a derailleur hanging down, right? The shifting happens with this mechanical cable. If I twist this right here, you can shift it standstill. We've got an infographic here that shows a hill. That's for your low gears, or flat for your high gears. It's continuously variable. It's like this ramp inside. You don't have these steps like you would with a traditional gear. So when I twist that, you can see the wire moving back here. It's a pretty great setup. You don't have a derailleur that's hanging down, getting dirty, getting bumped. It's just extremely clean. And then you pair it with a belt drive, and this is like top of the line Gates carbon belt drive. This is a CDX center track design, so it has a little slot right in the middle that lines up with a slot on that chainring. 54 tooth up there, 22 tooth in the rear. And I love that they've even got like an aluminum alloy guard. It doubles as a bash guard, so it's going to protect the bottom bracket here if you do encounter a log or a tall rock, and then a chain cover too for your pants or your dress or whatever. So it's just extremely clean and quiet and almost like maintenance free. We don't need a slap guard because this thing is tight. We have a floating dropout back here, so you tighten the belt that way, and we have a cut in the frame. So this frame, not only is it sturdy and tough, but it's been modified to have that breakaway to get the belt on, because this isn't like a chain where you can disconnect the chain and then link it together. You actually need to slot that through the frame. Really interesting to see something like this on a bike that's rated so heavily and for high speeds. So to me, this thing it's kind of in a class of its own. It's very special. It's priced at $39.99 USD. The original drop, I think, is like $31.99. So it's a little bit more expensive, but if you want that belt drive, the clean, the quiet, you can go for this, and then you don't have to worry about shifting. It really simplifies things. Like, you come to a stop, you shift it, no problem. So I want to hit some of the other specs. 170 millimeter crank arms, of course, aluminum alloy platform pedals with the nice nubs. We got reflectors all around. I love that we've got the black spokes here, the black hub, even the black rims a little bit wider to support these tires. These are nice. These are 27.5, so they give you that lower attack angle. It's kind of it's really a compromise between 26-inch wheels and 28-inch wheels. And by going with 27.5, you can have slightly wider tires. These are 2.4, and that gives you some stability and cushion and float if you're on loamy, you know, earthy terrain like we are here. This is an RST suspension fork. It is air, so it's a little bit lighter weight, really buttery on this thing. And these are anodized aluminum alloy stanchions. We've got air pressure over here, so that's almost like preload. You can raise the air pressure if you're a heavier rider. And then we have compression adjust here. So there's this clicker, and you can dial this in and kind of lock this out if you don't want to have this bobbing feeling. And that's for if you're riding on like hard packed terrain or, you know, pavement. You don't need the suspension. It's one way you can make it maybe a little more stable if you've got that front rack and you just want things to feel tight. Love that. Internally routed cables, really nicely done. Great brakes on this bike as well. These are 180 millimeter. They're hydraulic, branded. It's funny to see the branding all over the place. These are dual piston calipers, 3-finger levers up here with adjustable reach. So if you're someone who's petite and you get this 17.5-inch frame versus the high step 19-inch, you can dial it in. You can have these levers in the right place for your fingers and not have a problem. You can also adjust this stem. I think it's 90 millimeters long, and you can angle it forward, or you can bring it up and kind of have that upright Dutch body position. Of course, there's adjustability here with the seat. You can raise and lower it. I really like this seat. It's sort of wider for cushion and nice like seat bone, but it's narrower up here, so you're not going to chafe your inner thigh if you're pedaling actively. This is a bike that it could be kind of an SUV. It's like a Range Rover in the sense that it's very capable, but a lot of people might get it because it's sort of a luxury sort of thing. So, you know, don't get me wrong. It's like you can ride this thing 30.9 millimeters on the seat post. So it's a little bit thicker, a little wider than a traditional 27.2, and that's going right back to like the strength and stuff. We do have a lower minimum saddle height on this bike than the high step, and I love that when you lower the saddle, it doesn't actually collide with the rack. So maybe you have a trunk bag back here, you have panniers, maybe a child seat. This thing, again, it's rated for 100 pounds. That's ridiculous. Pannier hangers right here, so you can clip your own on if you want to, but you still have room up here for the pack. One of my favorite child seats is the Thule Yep Next Maxi, and it sort of clamps onto the sides, and there's plenty of room for that back here. It's just a workhorse. Even the kickstand, check this out. This is pretty cool. It's mounted in the perfect position because you're not going to get, you know, pedal lock if you're backing the bike out, because the pedals kind of spin backwards in that case. But it's also adjustable length, so you can, without tools, you can press this red button and extend it and make sure that the bike is balanced even on kind of a hilly, uneven terrain like we're dealing with here. For me, that's great. Sometimes, even when kickstands don't cause pedal lock, they're a little bit close and you can kind of clip your heel. I like that this one's just, it's plenty of space. This is a little magnet that passes by the rear wheel speed sensor. It gives you some feedback on the display, but it also communicates with the motor to give you a smooth, natural feel. This is a cadence sensing motor. There are some motors now, mid-drives especially, that are multi-sensor, a little bit fancier. This is a really proven, long-standing motor. It's the BBS02. If you've been in the industry, a lot of people use this to convert bikes to electric. Well, DŌST has integrated really nicely with the shielding and everything, so it blends in, but it's just very reliable. It's a very capable motor, and it tends to work well with the throttle. So I think that's why they chose it. I was excited to show you the box that comes with the bike because they've done such a good job with this thing. I mean, really polished. It's nice to see the branding, but also packed really well. These are the pedals. They're kind of that aluminum alloy, wide, good traction. Definitely a fan of that, especially if you end up going off-road, it gets a little slick or something. Actually comes with the pedal wrench, which is nice. Get those on easily. This branded tool, and this is nicer than average. I mean, I've seen the really basic tool kits, but it was specially set up to have all of the correct tools that you'd need to adjust the bike, and it's You know, again, really good attention to detail. Some stickers here based on how you set the bike up, since you can adjust the speeds and depending on how you use it. This is really, it's a versatile bike. I like to see that. That's another thing it's kind of rare, and it just, a lot of thought went into this. I love the charger. This thing is very compact. It's fairly lightweight, about 1.5 pounds. It's 2 amps, which is, you know, that's kind of standard. That's what I usually see in the industry from companies. A lot of times the charger is a little bit bulkier. This one feels really solid. It's polished. It's got the branding, of course. And they have a 4 amp charger that's optional. If you buy that, it's extra. It's in addition to the 2 amp charger. But for a bike that could potentially have 2 batteries for that long range, being able to fill them both quickly is nice. And I imagine you could just leave this compact charger, maybe one at home, put the other one at work, or one in a backpack that you take with you. I think that's really great. So it's just really well done. And of course, here are the keys. To me, it's so cool that they have a couple different colors, but it's more than just the color. The high step is a 19-inch frame. The step through is a 17.5, so it's shorter reach, lower standover, just a bit more approachable. And then it gives you some options. You know, it kind of feels like a his and hers setup, but that is still fairly neutral. And if you're a shorter guy, or if you just want that step through, I feel like it's, you know, it's well done. It's professional looking thing. They both have the secondary battery option, and this is how it comes packaged. I mean, look at this, like, talk about overkill. They really do a good job. So this opens up, it's like a really nice toolbox. We've got the secondary battery here. This is 48 volt, 10.5 amp hour, so it's a little bit lower capacity, but when you combine it with the 14 amp hour main battery pack, you get over the kilowatt hour. It's got some keys, so you do have kind of a second set of keys connecting it to the bike. Here's the plug. It connects right there, so it's just perfectly positioned. The cable's not like wrapping around the side. It's not going to get snagged in the pedals, the cranks, or anything like that. And you can take the foam out of this thing, and then you can use this box as like a little carrying tote. You can bungee it, or, you know, maybe zip tie it to this rear rack. I think that's kind of cool, sort of recycling. And then they're just being extra careful with the battery. This is what it actually looks like, the track that I was talking about. So there's the secondary locking port. To me, those are some of the trade-offs. It's like you have to plug in these batteries independently, and you have to lock and unlock them independently. It's a little bit of an extra step, but if you do opt for that optional 4 amp charger that's a little faster, you could charge simultaneously in that case. So there are 3 bolts. You just mount it onto that down tube. It's very secure. It's designed to be just really clean, efficient. You can see here, if we put this on the bike, got the little power button there, and then the charging port is on the left-hand side, but it's still high up. It's not down there by the crank arm. So, you know, I think this was maybe more of a happy accident, but I just love that everything's high up. You're not bending way down and bumping your head on the handlebars and stuff. There's the tool again. This is one of the optional accessories. And then in addition, we have that front basket. It's got the DŌST logo on it, of course, and we've got the cable routing, really well thought out. And then there's the holster for that folding lock and the optional bottle mount on the other side. So you really have a lot of options for accessories on these bikes, you know, and just the way that it's set up. Again, 25-pound max weight for the front rack. Okay, so I want to boot this thing up for you. We got the power button right here. Of course, we got the branded display. Bunch of good readouts here. We've got the clock, battery infographic, but it's also a percentage readout, much more precise than just like 5 bars. I love that. But they also have range estimate in here. Definitely nice to have when you're riding on a heavier bike. This is about 67 pounds as seen here, without the additional battery, without any accessories. It's because this continuously variable transmission has these metal orbs in there and some traction fluid, and they've had to kind of reinforce the frame to keep it stiff and sturdy. But you have the fenders, you have the lights, everything here is, yeah, you know, that's just how it is. You end up with a little bit of extra weight. So we have current speed right in the middle, almost like a dial like on a car or something, trip distance, and then a level of assist. We can take it all the way to 0 and like nothing works. It's just basically a bike with lights and a nice little display. So let's turn those lights on. If I hold the light button, you'll notice that the display actually dims so it doesn't ruin your night vision. And then these lights come on. We've got 2 LEDs in the rear. Again, very nice. They kind of went above and beyond, and it's well protected. Like this rack, if you bump into a wall or something, the rack is going to protect that rear light. Also helps in shipping because this is direct to consumer. I want to highlight that DŌST has a pretty good reputation for customer support. they go above and beyond. I see their comments all the time in like the forums and on the website on reviews. People seem to be pretty happy, and that's part of the little bit of a higher price point. You're paying for a good customer experience. Here's that headlight I was talking about. It's very bright, and it really lights up the path. It's not just be seen, as I was saying before. And if you don't get that front rack, I mean, it points where you want it. I really like that they did that, but it is mounted to the suspension arch, so it can bounce up and down a little bit more because this is unsprung. Sometimes I prefer to have it maybe on that front rack. It's not going to point where you steer, but then it's going to be suspended, or even up here, but then it crowds the display. The display is not removable, but it is adjustable a little bit if you're getting some glare, which is nice. And it's got a 5-volt USB charging port built into the bottom, which is so cool. You might have a little speaker or maybe a phone or something for GPS, and you can sort of power it off of those batteries. So let's talk a little bit about that range again. So if we come up here, we press the I button, we're going to cycle through from trip to odometer, max speed, average speed, range. This is what I'm talking about. So if we use the plus or minus buttons here, go to the lowest level of assist, level 1, it says 36 kilometers with only 25% battery remaining. That's pretty amazing. Highest level assist, okay, way down to 15 kilometers. Just going to help you plan effectively like we were talking about here. And then if we hold the minus button for a second, we get walk mode, which is great if this thing is loaded up and maybe you're on a hill that just feels a little steep, or maybe it's terrain that feels a little bit uneven and you're just feeling more comfortable walking the bike. I like that they kept that. The dedicated light button I talked about earlier, and then if you double tap I, we get into this menu system, which is so cool. If we go to the settings here, we can change the units. So right now we're in metric. I'm going to change that to imperial, get some miles per hour. Brightness, so that's the display. Again, back to like night vision if you want to really dial that down. Maybe you don't look at the display all that much and you just want to mute things. I love that they give you access to all this. Reset your trip, the wheel size, speed limit. This is what I'm talking about. So you can turn this into the class 3 bike, 28 miles per hour. And you can crank it, you can make it to work a little bit faster. Maybe you're in traffic and you want cars to sort of respect you, be able to accelerate off the line. That's a nice thing. It's a great option, but it does restrict which trails you can go on. A lot of times these mountain biking trails and stuff, they say, okay, only class 1, maybe class 2. So, you know, this throttle is easy to remove. There's like a quick disconnect in here. It's all very modular. And then of course we kind of got booted out of the settings here. You put a password on the bike, set the clock, that's it. So I think what I'm trying to get across here is, for me, it's exciting to see a bike that gives you so many choices. I'm kind of an electric bike geek. You know, I look at these all day long, every day, and to see someone doing something a little different, a company that's really putting a lot of effort in. Yeah, they only have a couple of models. It's like the Drop and the KOPE, but now they have a couple versions of that, depending on what kind of drivetrain you want. And they're just refining this thing more and more. So with that said, I might hop on this bike and go for a ride. Okay, I'm just gonna adjust the light a little bit here. We got a pretty steep hill. I'm in one of the lower levels with that CVT, and I'm gonna juice it with the throttle here. Oh boy. I mean, no problem on this thing. We're really doing great. Whoa. To be able to climb without pedaling at all on a fairly steep, you know, off-road trail like this, I can hear the motor, but you know, that's pretty impressive. That's kind of the dream. It sort of levels the playing field if you're going out with a friend and one person's a little tired, or maybe you're like me and you have a knee injury. That's how I got into electric bikes. This makes it so you can kind of keep up or tackle the hill. And now we're at this beautiful flat section where I can enjoy pedaling like normal, you know? It's very smooth, very dynamic. Right now I'm in the lower level of assist, just trying to test the sound. Very cool. Pretty responsive. There we go. Tracking really feels really stable, and that's nice. It's partially because of those bigger tires, but also the frame geometry. And now we're going down that hill. I'm gonna do the brake test here. Nice and easy, just with one hand. Look at that. Yeah, the 180 millimeter rotors, they give you a good mechanical advantage, and they offer some cooling advantages too, because there's more surface area. Definitely want that when you start barreling down a hill like this. It's such a cool place. If you ever get the chance to come here, it's called Demonstration Forest. It's just to walk our bikes here, so we'll follow the rules, and I'll show you this nice bridge over a huge, like, gorge or something. Check this out. Whoa. It's a long ways down, huh? Pretty cool. Beautiful day for a ride. A lot of friendly people out here. Let's do some shifting here. Take it to that flat. There we go. Slows the cadence down a little bit so we can get those higher speeds. Awesome. Really smooth. It's a perfect situation for a lockout. Hey guys, I'm gonna do some third-person ride shots here. Kind of feather the throttle. The low standover is nice. Sometimes you have to hop off quickly and you're on uneven terrain, or maybe you've got the rack loaded up. Just being able to stabilize the bike feels good. I do have the seat a little bit taller. Got kind of a 31-inch inseam, so for what it's worth. There we go. Yeah. Bit of off-road action. I was gonna check the walk mode here. Yeah, that's handy. When the bike gets loaded up, works like a charm. So the real test for a hill is you kind of like stop right before the hill and then see if you can make it up. That's pretty good. I mean, this is a steep hill. Like, this is, you know, it's quite steep. And it's interesting because the tread on this is sort of, it's like hybrid, you know? We don't have these big knobs or anything. And I kind of slid the tire a little bit, like locking the brakes on the wet grass. But they've been handling really well on the gravel and off-road. I think it's because they're, you know, 2.4 inches wide. They're a little bit wider. They give you that extra traction, bigger contact patch. And then 27.5, it's a lower attack angle, so it smooths the ride out. As always, guys, I've done my best to measure all the specs for this bike. You know, the standover height, the length, the width, the weight of the different batteries and stuff. It's all back at ElectricBikeReview.com. There's a comparison tool there, so you could sort of see, you know, the CVT version versus the standard drop. It's a little cheaper, and it's just got the cassette and derailleur. There's also some forums. You know, my goal is to provide like an objective, deep look, but I don't own this bike. I've just been using it for a little while, and these are my insights. You can hear from the actual owners back at the forums. I love ya. I hope you have fun out there, whatever you're riding, and we'll see you next time.